I reported you for tax fraud, my sister Miranda announced proudly at Thanksgiving dinner, her voice ringing through our mother's dining room like a victory bell. You'll finally be exposed for whatever shady deals you've been hiding all these years. The family watched eagerly, Mom's eyes gleaming with anticipation, Dad nodding approvingly, my brother-in-law already drafting the story he'd tell at work. But why did the IRS agent sitting in my living room 3 weeks later look so confused, shuffling through papers with an expression of dawning embarrassment? Ms. Delgado, I need to apologize for any inconvenience, Agent Thomas Brennan said, closing his folder. We're not here about fraud. We're here because your $12 million charitable foundation qualifies for an expedited review under our nonprofit recognition program. I set down the coffee I'd been offering him. I'm sorry, what? The Luz Foundation. You're the founder and primary donor, correct? He pulled out another document. We received an anonymous report alleging suspicious financial activity. Our investigation revealed no irregularities, quite the opposite. Your foundation's compliance is exemplary. We're actually here to discuss potential federal matching funds for your scholarship programs. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. Miranda had tried to destroy me and accidentally fast-tracked recognition for the charity I spent 8 years building in secret. Agent Brennan, I said, wiping my eyes, would you like to stay for lunch? I have quite a story to tell you. I'd been the family disappointment since childhood. The Delgado family operated on a simple principle: visible achievement or irrelevance. My father, Roberto Delgado, was a successful immigration attorney who measured worth in degrees, titles, and public recognition. My mother, Catherine, was a former model turned real estate agent who measured it in appearances, connections, and social standing. Miranda had followed their template perfectly. Law degree from Georgetown. Partnership at a white shoe firm by 32. Marriage to a cardiologist whose family had a building named after them at Johns Hopkins. She was everything our parents wanted, displayed like a trophy at every family gathering. And then there was Esperanza, Hope, the middle child who dropped out of college to find herself, worked a series of unremarkable jobs, and lived in a modest apartment despite being nearly 40 years old. What they didn't know was what I'd been finding. The money came from an unexpected source. At 23, I'd taken a job as a personal assistant to an elderly widow named Harriet Chen. She was 91, sharp as a blade, and had outlived 3 husbands, each wealthier than the last. She hired me to manage her correspondence, organize her schedule, and, though neither of us named it directly, keep her company in her final years. We talked for hours every day. She told me about immigrating from Taiwan in 1952, about building a textile business that the men in her family had tried to take credit for, about surviving 3 marriages and learning that the only person you could truly depend on was yourself. You remind me of me, she said once, watching me organize her medicine cabinet. You're invisible to them, aren't you? Your family. They look right through you. They see me. They just don't like what they see. Same thing, in the end. She'd smiled, that knowing expression that made her look decades younger. But invisible people have advantages. We can build empires while everyone's watching someone else. Harriet died 4 months later. Her will shocked everyone, including me. She'd left the bulk of her $40 million estate to various charities, but she'd also left me a personal bequest of $3 million and instructions that changed my life. Use it to become who you're meant to be, her letter read. Not who they expect. Who you choose. Les choses philanthropie. Not because I was noble or selfless, at least, not primarily. I chose it because I'd seen what Harriet had seen, the power of building something while no one was watching. The freedom of working without the expectation of applause. I invested a portion of the inheritance and lived modestly on the returns. The rest went into the Luz Foundation, Luz meaning light in Spanish, my grandmother's native language. The foundation provided scholarships to first-generation college students, funded community health clinics in underserved areas, and supported arts programs in public schools. I ran it myself, with minimal staff, avoiding the galas and publicity that characterized most charitable work. We didn't need a fancy office or a celebrity board of directors. We needed to identify kids who'd been overlooked, the same way I'd been overlooked, and give them opportunities to shine. Within 5 years, we'd funded 847 scholarships, helped establish 14 clinics, transformed 43 school arts programs. Nobody in my family knew. I worked as a freelance bookkeeper, real work, legitimate income that explained my modest lifestyle. The foundation existed in a separate universe, one where I was effective and valued and making a genuine difference. I kept the secret because I didn't want it tainted. I didn't want my mother taking credit at dinner parties. I didn't want Miranda analyzing whether my charity was efficient enough. I didn't want my father explaining that I should have gone to law school like a real Delgado. The foundation was mine. Pure. Untouched by their judgment. And then Miranda decided to destroy it. The IRS report was her masterpiece of malice. Miranda had always been competitive, but her antagonism toward me had intensified after her divorce 3 years ago. The cardiologist had left her for a younger colleague, the prenup had been ironclad, and suddenly her perfect life wasn't so perfect anymore. Rather than confront her own failures, she'd redirected her fury at me, the sister who seemed to have nothing, want nothing, and inexplicably remain content despite her obvious inadequacy. There's something wrong with her, I'd overheard Miranda telling Mom. She can't actually be happy living like that. She must be hiding something. Mom agreed. They always agreed. Miranda spent months gathering evidence. My multiple bank accounts, foundation accounts, investment accounts, operating accounts, all legitimate. My irregular income patterns, freelance work varies, obviously. My mysterious trips, site visits to clinics and schools we'd funded. She assembled her case with the same thoroughness she applied to legal briefs and submitted it to the IRS with an anonymous tip about suspicious financial activity consistent with money laundering or tax evasion. She'd announced it at Thanksgiving because she wanted to see my face when the investigation began. Instead, she'd triggered an audit that revealed the opposite of what she'd hoped. Agent Brennan stayed for 3 hours. He was genuinely interested in the Foundation's work, asking detailed questions about our scholarship selection process and community clinic partnerships. He'd been an IRS agent for 20 years and had seen every variety of fraud imaginable. Finding a legitimate, well-run charity instead had clearly made his day. Your record-keeping is immaculate, he said, reviewing my files. I've audited nonprofits with million-dollar budgets and professional staff who don't maintain documentation this thorough. I was trained by a woman who survived 3 marriages to wealthy men. She understood paperwork. He laughed. This federal matching program I mentioned, it's competitive, but based on what I've seen, you'd be a strong candidate. Could potentially double your scholarship funding. I had no idea such a program existed. Most people don't. That's partly why we investigate tips like your sister's. Sometimes we find fraud, but sometimes we find organizations doing excellent work that deserve more support. He paused. You've kept this remarkably quiet. Why no publicity? Because I didn't start this for recognition. I started it because I had resources and wanted to use them well. I refilled his coffee. Also, my family would have found a way to make it about them. Or about how I was doing it wrong. Or about how I should be using a professional board instead of managing it myself. Family dynamics? You could say that. He nodded slowly. Well, for what it's worth, from a purely professional standpoint, you're doing it right. Whatever they think, you're doing it right. The family found out 2 weeks later. I could have kept it quiet, Agent Brennan was discreet, and the federal matching program didn't require publicity. But something had shifted in me since Thanksgiving. Miranda's attempt to destroy me had backfired so spectacularly that I felt, for the first time, ready to stop hiding. I invited everyone to Christmas dinner at my apartment, something I'd never done before. My place was small, modest, exactly what they expected from disappointing Esperanza. This is cozy, Mom said, her eyes cataloging every inexpensive item. Very authentic, Miranda added, her voice dripping with condescension. Minimalist, Dad concluded. I suppose there's value in that. I served dinner, nothing fancy, but good food. I'd learned to cook during years of living on a budget that was voluntary rather than forced. They ate cautiously, as if poverty might be contagious. After dessert, I brought out a folder. I have some news, I said. About the IRS investigation Miranda initiated. Miranda straightened with anticipation. Did they schedule your court date? Not exactly. I handed her the folder. The investigation found no fraud. Instead, they found my charitable foundation. The one I've been running for 8 years. They're recommending us for federal matching funds. The silence was absolute. Miranda opened the folder, her face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked almost like pain. The Luz Foundation, she read aloud. Founder and primary donor, Esperanza Delgado. Total charitable distributions since inception, $11.7 million. Scholarships funded, 847. Health clinics supported, 14. School programs established, 43. She looked up at me. This is impossible. The interrogation lasted an hour. Where did the money come from? Harriet Chen's bequest, documented and legal. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want your involvement or opinions. How did we not know? Because you never asked about my life. You only made assumptions. That last answer landed hardest. That's not fair, Mom protested. We've always been interested in your life, you've been interested in criticizing my life. There's a difference. I kept my voice level. Every family gathering, every phone call, every holiday, you ask about Miranda's cases and Dad's clients and what charity boards Mom is serving on. You ask me when I'm going to figure things out. As if I'm a problem to be solved. We were worried. You were disappointed. Because I didn't follow your script. Because I chose a different path and you couldn't imagine that path leading anywhere worthwhile. Dad spoke for the first time since the revelation. You should have told us. We're your family. Family supports each other, Dad. Family doesn't report each other to the IRS because they're convinced something must be wrong. I looked at Miranda. You spent months building a case against me. Gathering evidence. Analyzing my finances. Looking for fraud that would prove I was the failure you needed me to be. I thought. You thought I couldn't possibly be okay unless there was something criminal happening. Because in your mind, someone like me can't succeed legitimately. I shook my head. The irony is that your investigation actually helped. The federal matching program will increase our impact significantly. You tried to destroy something good and accidentally made it better. Miranda's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like the sister I'd known in childhood, before competition poisoned everything, before our parents' expectations warped us both into combatants. I'm sorry, she said. The words sounded foreign, unpracticed. I know. Can you forgive me? I considered the question. The years of snide comments. The Thanksgiving announcement. The malicious report that could have caused real damage if my records hadn't been impeccable. I can try, I said finally. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust. You'll have to earn that back. The aftermath was complicated. Mom wanted to join the foundation board immediately, already planning galas and fundraisers and opportunities for social recognition. I declined politely but firmly. The foundation would continue operating as it always had, without society events or celebrity involvement. Dad wanted to review my legal structure, convinced there must be inefficiencies he could improve. I showed him the documentation Agent Brennan had praised and watched him struggle to find anything to critique. Miranda wanted to help. Genuinely, I think, the investigation's backfire had cracked something open in her, forced her to confront the ugliness of what she'd done. She offered pro bono legal services, connections at her firm, anything I needed. I don't need a lawyer, I told her. But I do need someone to mentor scholarship recipients interested in legal careers. Would you consider that? She cried. Actually cried, standing in my modest apartment, surrounded by evidence of the life she'd tried to destroy. Yes, she managed. I'd like that. It was a start. The federal matching program came through 6 months later. $4.2 million in additional funding over 5 years, dedicated to expanding our scholarship programs and establishing new community clinics. The announcement was modest, a press release, a small ceremony, but it represented validation I hadn't known I needed. More importantly, it represented capacity. More students helped. More clinics funded. More lives changed by resources they'd never expected to receive. I was interviewed by a local journalist covering the story. She asked the question everyone asks, why anonymity? Why hide success when most people crave recognition? Because the work matters more than the credit, I said. Because some of us build better in the shadows. And because, I paused, thinking of Harriet, of her knowing smile. Because invisible people have advantages. We can change the world while everyone's watching someone else. My relationship with my family has evolved. It's not healed, some wounds run too deep for easy repair. But it's honest now, which is more than we had before. They see me differently, not because I've changed but because their assumptions have been shattered. Miranda mentors 3 scholarship recipients now. She's good at it, actually. Her competitiveness translates well into advocating for young people who need someone in their corner. She still apologizes sometimes, unprompted, for the IRS report. I was trying to prove you were a fraud, she told me recently. Instead, I proved I didn't know you at all. You know me now. I'm trying to. Mom serves on exactly one foundation committee, not mine, but a literacy program we partner with. It gives her the social involvement she craves without contaminating my work. Dad has stopped giving unsolicited advice. We have actual conversations now, about the law and immigration policy and how his work intersects with the communities I serve. He's not warm, that's not who he is, but he's respectful. It's enough. Last month, I received a letter from a scholarship recipient. Her name was Gabriela Santos. First-generation college student. Daughter of a hotel housekeeper and a construction worker. She was graduating from Stanford with honors, heading to medical school in the fall. You don't know me, she wrote, but you changed my life. When I received the Luz Foundation scholarship, I was about to drop out. My family couldn't afford tuition, and I was too proud to take on more debt. Your foundation didn't just give me money, it gave me permission to believe I deserved this opportunity. She went on for 3 pages, describing her journey, her struggles, her hopes for the future. Someday, she concluded, I want to do what you've done. Help people nobody else sees. Build something that matters more than recognition. Thank you for showing me that success doesn't have to look like everyone expects. I framed that letter. It hangs in my home office, next to the photograph of Harriet Chen. Miranda tried to expose a fraud and discovered a truth. The truth wasn't just about the foundation, it was about all of us. About how families construct narratives that serve their needs rather than reflect reality. About how the people we dismiss might be accomplishing more than we imagine. About how judgment blinds us to what's actually happening right in front of us. My family spent decades seeing me as a disappointment. A failure. A problem to be solved or pitted. They were so committed to that narrative that Miranda reported me to the IRS, certain she'd find the criminal activity that would confirm my inadequacy. Instead, she found 847 scholarships, 14 clinics, 43 school programs, $12 million in charitable impact. She found that the invisible sister had been building an empire all along. Not for recognition. Not for approval. Just because it needed to be built, and I was the one willing to build it. The IRS investigation didn't expose my secrets, it exposed my family's failures. Their failure to see. Their failure to ask. Their failure to imagine that worth could exist without their recognition. That's the real lesson Miranda learned in that audit. And it's one she's still working to understand. She reported me expecting fraud. She gathered evidence expecting crime. She announced it at Thanksgiving expecting to finally see me broken. But the IRS didn't find what she was looking for. They found $12 million in charitable work. They found 847 students whose lives I'd changed. They found a foundation built in secret by the sister everyone had written off. The investigation wasn't my exposure, it was theirs. It revealed who they really were, a family so committed to seeing me as a failure that they couldn't recognize success even when it was hidden in plain sight. The audit didn't destroy me. It freed me. And now they have to live with knowing what they missed, what they dismissed, what they tried to demolish. The light was there all along. They just refused to see it.